We had listened to the health ministry yesterday. They were talking about inclusion of private sector in public healthcare. Also, we have listened to private sector on their initiatives in healthcare. So, inclusion of private sector, up to what limit, association of public and private sector, up to what extent, how fruitful it is, it needs to be discussed in this session. And I hope this session will be quite insightful in this regard. So, with this I invite the panelists on stage. I start with Dr. Rajiv Kumar Jain, Additional Chief Health Director, Central Hospital, Northern Railway. Sir, please join us on the dais. A big hand for Dr. Jain, please. I invite Dr. Anant R. Koppar, Chairman and CEO, K2 Technology Solutions Private Limited, Bangalore. So please join us on the stage. Please chair for the speakers. Then I invite Dr. K. Rajshekhar, Senior Technical Director, National Informatics Center, Hyderabad. Mr. P.J. Binu, Senior Engineer, Health Informatics, CDAC, Thiruvananthapuram. Mr. Subodh Satyawadi, CEO, GVK Emergency Management and Research Institute. So please join us on the stage. So at 1 we have our lunch, so I request Dr. Rajiv Kumar Jain to please chair the session and please try to wrap it up for 1 so that everybody can have their lunch peacefully. I hand over the stage to Dr. Jain.
Thank you, Karthik. This session is quite interesting in more senses than one because this is the most difficult area which Indian healthcare sector is facing at the moment. Partnerships in general are difficult to nurture and prosper in Indian scenarios. In addition, in the health sector it's all the more difficult since the scenario on the ground is so disproportionate to not result in effective sustainable partnerships. First of all, I would like to tell that the rules of the session. We have 65 minutes at our disposal, and we have very enlightened panelists who will deliberate on the complex matter. But essence of life is brevity. So I would request all my panelists to be brief and to the point to actually enable us to interact amongst ourselves and also ensure that we are able to interact with the people in the hall. So for achieving this goal, I hope each one of us in the beginning takes 5 minutes each, if that is okay. 5 minutes each for each panelist. And then we deliberate on the issues of how to build the PPP model for the Indian healthcare sector. If we have to start a debate and discuss the issue of how to develop an effective model, we need to be aware as to what is the scenario on the ground. If we see 11th five-year plan, what was the goal? The goal was lowering maternal and infant mortality, malnutrition among children, anemia among women and girls, and fertility. Have it been met? None of the goals have been met, which means that our aspirations and our methodologies are not working. Can you believe we have 56% among married women aged 15 to 45 years who are anemic after 60 years of independence? Can you believe that 23% of women and children are malnourished? Can we still believe that 47 is the high infant mortality rate and maternal mortality is again 2120 per million births? Can we still believe that we still spend just 1% of our GDP on healthcare against 14% in US? Can we still believe that we have 71% out-of-pocket expenditure? All of us know that 71% means this money goes into non-productive, low-quality healthcare. If these are the realities, is it not imperative that we need to revisit our health model? And the investment that are being made in our healthcare sector need to be redirected to more productive channels. One of the most important health reforms which have been observed in the last 10 years globally and especially in developing countries is increase in the public spending. Second is the devolution of management, that is increased autonomy to the state and local government bodies in managing the health programs. Disease incidence profiles have changed over the last 10-15 years. We have increase in non-communicable diseases and lifestyle diseases like heart disease, diabetes and cancer. We have increasing publicly sponsored health coverage like Rajiv Gandhi Swasthya Bima Yojana. Innovations are the core driver of growth in the health sector in India today, which require a lot of investment. Like mHealth we had discussed in this very conference, telemedicine, use of Ayush, that is Ayurvedic, Yoga, Siddha and homeopathy. Micro-insurance and medical tourism are also increasing. Then in the last session itself we had the increasing use of IT for enhancing the efficiency and transparency in the health sector. Now if this is the imperative and this is the reality, we face another reality of great proportion of disproportionate supply and infrastructure in terms of doctors, nurses and beds. Can we believe that India still has 13 nurses for every 10,000 persons against a global average of 28? We have 6 doctors against the global average of 12 per 10,000 persons. We have 9 beds against 24 beds per 10,000 persons in the world. And this, when I say global average, it means disproportionate high ratio in developed countries. You'll be surprised to know that Russia has one of the highest proportion of beds per 10,000 population. Russia also has one of the best ratio of doctors to 10,000 population. It's not US, surprisingly. Germany seems to be having the highest ratio of nurses per 10,000 population. These are surprising statistics which are facing us. And over that, if you realize the hugely short infrastructure, deficient infrastructure, if the government of India today plans to change the health scenario in terms of increased beds, increased number of doctors and nurses, can it do so in the next 10 years? It cannot. Because to create a medical college, to create a nursing college, to create a bed requires money and infrastructure, which is not available with us. Even if government of India or a private investor today would have the money, he will not be able to transfer into reality this dream of having the doctors, nurses and the beds, by sheer lack of supply chain. So, which means increasing competition amongst the available beds, nurses and doctors and other infrastructure. Now, what is the solution? If this is the reality, the only possibility is to build more efficient systems in the available infrastructure that we have. All of us know 80% of doctors are in the private sector. Most of the nurses are in the private sector. Most of the beds are in the private sector. Yet, the flow of patient is more on the public sector infrastructure because of sheer lack of resources of transferring that money from private sector to the public sector facilities. Now, if we have to bridge this gap of fully public and fully private, we need to know what are the models available today. One could have a lot of advantages and disadvantages. One of the commonest model for the persons working in the public sector is management contract. Second model in the private sector is to give a concession agreement, to have a concession agreement. Between these two, we have leasing, joint ventures, and build, operate, transfer, or build, operate, and operate. Now, these models have their own advantages and disadvantages, yet each has its practicality on the ground. But before we move forward, we need to just examine what are the first steps to have a public-private partnership. These few steps are essential before we discuss the subject to be able to arrive at a tangible solution at the end of 1 hour of our discussion, because this will lead to clarity in our thought and discussion. First is to establish, to conduct a detailed investigation on what the public really needs. Do we have this definition? Do we have this data? Do we have this information? We need to define that. And if we do not have, then why won't we progress towards PPP model? So we really need to know what are the needs of the public. To run a PPP project, a balance must be struck between gain and loss by determining the value of efforts. Now, what are those value of efforts? It's not only money, it's also the opportunity cost, it's also the value created as a result of the partnership. Third step is to gain the public's trust and support, which is not easy. This step requires huge commitment from the people who are holding public offices, and also people who are holding offices in the organized private sector lobbying bodies, FICCI, SOCHM, CII. Next step that would be required are the behavioral changes amongst users, which will influence the ultimate success of the PPP projects. If these prerequisites are met, then we need to establish a comprehensive set of legal frameworks which governs the running of the PPP project. Huge role by the Ministry of Finance in the center and the offices of chief ministers in the state governments. Huge role. Because you create legal frameworks to actually set the ball rolling. You create legal frameworks to see that the projects are successful. Because one success leads to another, and that leads to sustainability of the projects in the PPP framework. And one setback will lead to 10 other setbacks in other concurrently running projects in other areas in India. That's the entire impact of the national scenario on the state where the PPP projects are running, because health being a state subject. It will work at the state level, but the overall environment is the national environment or the global environment. Last but not the least is the examination of the operational risks, which needs to be minimized as far as possible. They are major operational risks. These risks have to be identified, addressed and resolved. You have to build an infrastructure where the risks are covered comprehensively, sufficiently and effectively. Not in the beginning, but all through the life cycle of the PPP projects. So with this background, I would request my panelists to drive the whole discussion. So first I will invite Dr. Anantar Koppar, who is the Chairman and CEO of the K2 Technology Solutions Private Limited, Bangalore, to dilate on the subject.
Thank you, sir, for the nice backdrop for the subject. One of the things which I thought I should present is the model which I'm seeing in one of the projects executed by K2 Technology Solutions as an interesting model for the PPP. If you look at the PPP models, our chairman has elaborated a lot on this, where we have very limited risk at the top, where a private party will design, build, but it is financed by the public enterprise, or the full risk transfer where we have a concession agreement where 100% responsibility is with the private enterprise. In choosing a model for PPP, I think a proper risk profile for all stakeholders have to be considered, and we also need to consider the differences in sectors like roads and infrastructure, human resource management or healthcare. I believe that when we talk about healthcare, these are much different from the other PPP projects which we see normally, which are more and more successful, particularly in the road infrastructure sense. And if you look at the Indian healthcare, I believe with my experience, there is a boost needed for the primary healthcare. And some of the goals, the Millennium Development Goals, can be addressed very well if we try to address the primary health care in a better way. And hence, conventional PPP with high risk for private may not be suitable for the healthcare sector. And this is where we need to have a balance of what needs to be done by the private and the public, and how we need to do the model. In Bihar, we are executing a project for the statewide telemedicine network, starting from the low-level, block-level PHCs, primary health centers, to the district hospitals, and then to a state command center where we have experts available. The concept there, which was, I think, an innovative concept, was to design, build, but not owned by the private sector. It is owned by the public sector, and we, private sector, operate and maintain. So from a design, build, own, operate, transfer, we are moving into a different kind of PPP model where design, build, but not own. So we get money for whatever infrastructure we set up. The second thing is we earn revenues through user fees, where we charge very affordable prices to the patients. And this user fee is shared between private and the public enterprises. This helps in, I think, recovering some of the maintenance costs, which can make it more and more sustainable. And this project is primarily focused on primary health care. So all facilities which are required for primary health care are provided by this model. Just a glimpse of the architecture. We have 212 PHCs connected to 38 district hospitals connected to a state level unit. Everything is networked well. We've had challenges in doing this network in the villages because when we are in cities like Hyderabad, Bangalore, Delhi, we assume a lot of things, and these lot of things are not available in those villages, and hence I thought it is a good point to make. This is the system which we have implemented there. It is a unified healthcare management system as a kiosk in the PHC. We have already implemented around 100 PHCs connected to 19 district hospitals. Medical tests and consultations done at affordable prices. Consultations by doctors online at the civil hospitals, or the Sadar hospitals as they are called in Bihar. And we provide services to rural patients. Currently we are getting around 15 patients per day per kiosk, which is low. If you consider having a full risk PPP model, the private party would never have earned any money out of whatever investment he has done. So I think that model of funding the infrastructure but getting it operated by a private party is a different model. According to me, the factors for effective PPP model for Indian healthcare are these. One, it has to be a win-win-win situation. It has to be a win for a citizen at large, win for public enterprise, government agencies, and win for private enterprises. There should be affordable and easily accessible services, and onus is on proper implementation with an eye on continuing cost control. Many of our PPP projects fail because people concentrate on implementing once and then everything goes out of control, including the costs. And another point which our chairman talked about nicely was nurturing relationships. And we have seen in the PPP models, relationships don't go far. We need to have a continued relationship model or continued partnership model where the private party will work with the public enterprise for good of the citizen at large. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Koper. Very well elucidated and very brief and to the point. I would now request Mr. K. Rajshekhar, who is a senior technical director at the NIC Hyderabad, to elaborate on how NIC is contributing towards building a PPP model in the Indian healthcare sector. Mr. K. Rajshekhar.
Thank you, Chairman sir, and the delegates. We have actually taken a lot of initiatives in the healthcare sector in the country, and one is end-to-end workflow automation system like ERP for the hospital, for a tertiary care hospital, which can be scaled down for a secondary or a primary care hospital also, which has all the functions like registration to even operation theatre management, scheduling, pharmacy, in-pharmacy, all the features, whatever are required. Now, another important initiative which NIC has taken in the country is Central Government Health Scheme Management System, where all the central government employees and the pensioners are usually they get the benefit, and there are wellness centers all over the country, and this is a centralized architecture. Health cards are given to the employees or the pensioners or the beneficiaries and their family members, and they walk in, and doctors actually they use the system to prescribe also. So totally automated system, and all the health records are available, and immediately when he draws a medicine is being issued, he gets an alert also. This is actually been issued. So such system also successfully we are implementing for the past few years. And another important initiative is mother and child tracking system, in which we are registering all the mothers, pregnant women, even so information about all the new births, even from private sector also information is flowing to this national level database. So typically for data, the ASHA who works in the community, she collects the data of the beneficiaries, mother and children, and gives to the ANM. She registers and records all the data, and then ANM goes to the community. She provides the services, and like whatever medicines are to be given or immunization has to be done, that services are rendered. After that, she will the data gets updated at the primary health center, because facilities are there at the primary health center, and from there to a centralized repository information flows, and from the central database, a national level database, nearly we have right now around 60 lakh population, all the mothers and children data of Andhra Pradesh or the country is available here, and the monitoring and control, the MIS reports goes to all the stakeholders at the state level as well as the national level. Under NRHM this has been built. So we have a database of all the children and also all the mothers. And typically they are using for monitoring. At the field level, if you see, the new registration, let us say a pregnant woman is there, her details will be registered in the register at the sub-center, and then that will go on the monthly basis they are updating. In case if the system is there, if e-readiness is there, if they have facility, they can update instantaneously also. Based on this information, work plan comes to the field level health worker. And based on that work plan, she will be visiting every day. Okay, which, for example, which mothers are old cases, third visit of Lata, so-and-so, or TT2, it has to be given to so-and-so. So PNC visit for Lakshmi. So this action plan, in some states, early morning an SMS goes to the ASHA worker so that which houses are to be visited and what services are to be delivered. This is a system is in place. Now, we have also started building national, because as our chairman has rightly pointed out about the manpower, in the ratios, alarming ratios of manpower. So in India, even the data, whatever data is there, even the ratio is, see, our country has less number of medical professionals. Even that medical professionals information also is not available. How many are working, how many are gone abroad, how many are retired, or so all this information also is not available. So on 14th February, we have launched a national portal for the nursing. So we wish to capture all the information of the nurses, even right from the student stage onwards. Students, either private, those who are studying in the nursing schools, in the private schools or government schools, all the information of the nursing students, and after qualifying, the registration information, the legacy data. There are thousands of records are there. Around 1 lakh records is actually is the target. So the legacy data also we are capturing, and we are building a database of the nursing human resources in the country. Similar initiative we have started with the MCA. We are registering a national live registry of the doctors, so that after registration, the updation of the qualification, and also if they are going abroad or if there are any such activities, and also their posting details. So these two, nursing has already started, and the MCA is going to come in a couple of months' time. So then we will have a live registry of the nursing population as well as the doctors population in the country. Based on that, we can take planning and decision making is easier. Now, another important thing is PPP model, collaboration, etc. Now, collaboration is possible. See, I am looking from a different point of view. There are actually health services. No, see, under RTI, if it is a government under RTI, within 48 hours we have to provide information to the information seekers, and private sector, they are also coming under the Consumer Protection Act. And so whatever we do, it should be transparent, and we should be able to document, and we should be able to share. So either private or public, that is actually the rule of the game. Now, there are so many standards, around 60 standards are there internationally for recording or for rendering the services in the health sector. So these are all the standards. So now apart from that, Now we have, with the help of this, we will be able to create a standardized and electronic medical records. And now another important thing is this, we have different technologies, service-oriented architecture, web services, cloud. So these are the technologies, and these standards facilitates free flow of information to a central repository. Now we have mother's information, children information right from birth or even before birth. Now to that information, if the particular child has undergone some treatment in a private hospital, the hospital can treat and also share that information to the central repository, so that what actually can happen is the same investigations need not be carried out again and again by different investigation agencies or the hospitals. As a result, patient, see what the citizen requires is, he doesn't see, if I go to a hospital now and if I am referred to another hospital, the specialist there requests me to undergo all the investigations which I have undergone. That means either we are not believing on the other hospital. If you don't believe, we have to cancel the license of the other hospital or the investigation center which has given the reports. Or we should enforce a standard. So first is the standards are to be enforced. For enforcing the standards are well defined. Now once the standards are there, electronically the information can reside. Now we have from the government side, from NIC side, or what I can say is, enough digital resources are available to store the health records of entire population. To start right from birth to the death, we can keep on adding all that information, and that information can be shared and in a secure manner with all the service providers, either in the public domain or in the private domain. So as a result, what will happen is, we will be able to collaborate. Collaboration from technology point of view is feasible now. So this is what actually I wish to say, so that important thing is, once this is there, once standardized information flows through a cloud architecture, health cloud in the country, then we will be able to collaborate in a much better way. And for the service, for whatever a private sector has contributed or whoever may be, based on the service, based on the standard, the payments or other payments can be made. So technology is available, standards are available, and already some initiatives are taken. Now we should take advantage of all this and try to address the issues of IMR, MMR, because we need to even achieve the Millennium Development Goals, to achieve the Millennium Development Goals by 15th. And this is what hospital portals, individual hospitals have their portals, and the ministry, state and district and block users can interact, and government hospitals data, MCTS database, and private hospitals database, and other institute database can be at a single, because ultimately all are serving the same citizen or the patient. The database can be there, and all of them can interact and share this data and add they can build their services over it, and the information can be shared. For example, a specialist is there, he wishes to see a review the health record of a particular patient. On his mobile, information can come to him for the services, whatever he has rendered for the patient. He can also bill, and he can freely move from one hospital to another hospital. And so this type of collaboration is possible technically. And if you want for a level playing field, we from the government side, we already built the databases, and over and we can provide access in a secure way to the, of course, for that the non-technological understandings have to be there. Otherwise, technologically it is feasible, and infrastructure is also available. So for reports, for control and monitoring, scheduled reports, dashboard reports to the stakeholders can be rendered from this centralized repository. So this way we can share and we can avoid, because this is one thing. Another is the basic. Yeah, this is it. Thank you.
No doubt, this is what is required. For communication of different players in the country, you need a common language, and for common language you need a legal framework. In his presentation he has also highlighted the role that the government has to play in having the standards, the legal framework, and linkages that need to be set up from the beginning itself. Otherwise later there will be problems in terms of development of partnerships. now I would request Mr. P.J. Binu, who is a senior engineer, health informatics in CDAC in Thiruvananthapuram, to further enlighten us on his views on how to build effective partnerships.
A very good morning to all of you, dignitaries in the dais and delegates. First of all, I am thanking the organizers to invite me for giving a talk before you. And my topic is on data management system for oncology. A data management system for oncology is a clinical information system with a comprehensive electronic medical record for oncology care implemented at Regional Cancer Center Trivandrum. It's covering various clinics in the hospitals: head and neck clinic, breast clinic, pediatric, chest and gastro, medical oncology, chemotherapy modules, surgical modules, hormone therapy, and etc. etc. And the features, one of the feature is this application is integrated with the existing hospital information system and the telemedicine system. The application is developed for Regional Cancer Center Trivandrum. It's a big hospital catering their services to the southern region of India, and a lot of patients from Kerala and Tamil Nadu, they are actually visited there. There are around 15,000 new patients are registering for treatment every year, and approximately 1 lakh of follow-up consultations are going on. Yeah, what is the need of a data management system for oncology? We have a lot of a hospital information system that are running in different hospitals, but we need a comprehensive electronic medical record for a patient. The data management system for oncology is actually one of the steps forward to this data capturing for clinical information. We know that a lot of medical negligence occurs every year in Indian scenario. We don't have a standardization on clinical data capturing mechanism. We need a better scenario for decision making, and the data accessibility, quick data accessibility is one of the important thing in the hospitals, and legibility in the data put in a case sheet. It's another important thing. Structured data collection is another need of this type of applications, and reusability and obviously traceability of data means what are the editing happened in between the visit in the hospitals. So these are the basic needs. We need we going for a better application in the cancer care. The data management system for oncology facilitates the structured and parameterized data capturing of clinical information. It's a comprehensive electronic medical record. I already mentioned that. It's consolidated view of the patient data for research and statistical purpose, and quick access, improve quality and effectiveness of patient care. That's the major need in the health care scenario. And different standards. Now we know that a lot of the NIC sir already mentioned about that. A lot of standards are now available, and we have to follow different standard to capture the clinical data. And from the data, we are making clinical information, we are clinical knowledge, but we have to step forward to the clinical decision support system and evidence-based medicines. Yeah, I just go into the details of the data management system for oncology. It's basically implemented at different clinics. We are capturing history and clinical examination, diagnosis, investigation, ordering, and treatment planning, treatment and e-prescription and follow-up are managed by this system. And it's again, the history and clinical examination is actually in a cancer like hospitals. It's a huge data they are actually capturing. They have to capture in history, they have to capture the past history, then family history, the lot of things. We have to capture a lot of information through the applications. I can show some slides, some screenshots of the our applications. It is legible, readable to audience. You know that this is a form for a present illness information capturing for a head and neck clinic. See, this is oral cavity or oropharynx, larynx. Lot of informations are captured. Lot of information, a lot of data is captured in a parameterized manner. And that information can be, other information can be added with these applications. That the advantage of these applications, we can put some more details in these forms. And this is another slide for previous treatment and associated medical history. We can add the data for suppose a patient having more than one surgery, we can easily add that information to this here, and we can provide the information in a single click or within a seconds of fractions. And the associated medical history information is provided with this one. Similarly, the past history of cancer. Actually, this is actually for head and neck clinic. Though so the sites are only showing of that head and neck clinic, and the ICD code integrated. ICD-10 is integrated with the applications. Only the ICD codes of the head and neck clinic will be displayed here, and similarly the histology information can be pop up from the database. Lot of info. The entry of doctors are actually entering limited data in the applications. That is the beauty of these applications. Family history of cancer, we are creating first degree relative, second degree relative. The all information can be, and addictions, habits. Similarly in local regional examinations, a lot of information we are capturing here. All data are actually, all informations are capturing through a parameterized mechanism. And that regional lymph node information is capturing here. A lot of parameters data is capturing with the help of these applications. Investigations, what are the investigations done in the outside of these hospitals, that's also capturing these applications. And diagnosis information is also capturing with the help of these applications. We can provide ERX, means prescription, and we can refer with inter-department, and the appointment and observations of doctors and nurses can be captured through these applications. And doctor can order investigations from this from a single click or with the help of these applications. And results can be viewed in seconds or fractions. And the treatment module having chemotherapy and surgery, hormone therapy modules are attached with these applications. In the chemotherapy module, protocol creation, from the start of protocol creation, planning, administration, medication, concomitant medication, adverse events management. And in surgery, scheduling, anesthesia, pre-surgery, surgery, post-surgery notes, and discharge summary. That means what are the information needed? What are the information capturing in the during a treatment period? All information can be captured with the help of a click or selection procedure. This is a form for chemotherapy management, chemotherapy plan, chemotherapy medicines, and the cycles, chemotherapy cycles we can add. And
Mr. Binu, we need to hurry up.
Yes.
So we will have less time for discussion.
Sure. This is a treatment adverse events capturing to the applications. And these are some annotations facilities provided in the applications. It's implemented at breast cancer clinic. Yeah, data is actually not only stopping here, because we have to collect clinical data, we have to generate clinical information, we have to create knowledge from here. And what is next? That's a clinical decision support system, and evidence-based systems are actually one of the future of this healthcare system. As you know, clinical guidelines are scientifically evaluated and proven best practice and procedure. It's very difficult to memorizing by doctors. This is one of the slides for, this is one of the page of clinical guidelines. What we are proposing is we have to convert these clinical guidelines to a computer interpretable form. For that, we create a guideline creator, convert clinical guidelines in computer interpretable form, and keep it in a centralized repository, and develop an expert system for clinical decision. We can integrate the expert system with the electronic medical record of the clinical guideline at the point of care. That is it's a very useful applications in future. And this is an architecture we are proposing that capture the clinical guidelines and create in a repository. With the help of an inference engine, we can create a support system at the point of care. And sure, evidence-based medicine is also one of the future applications in Indian scenario. It will help this type of applications to
please wind up
yes,
fast, please.
This is my last slide. Thank you. Thank you for the
thank you, no doubt. It's an interest, our new challenge, that is the cancer, and how IT can help in building a platform where we can deliver better care. Now I request Mr. Subodh Satyavadi, who is the CEO of one of the iconic organizations in PPP sector in India. Iconic because they have delivered in the past, and they're growing fast, and they have been in India for a pretty long time. He is the CEO of GVK, Emergency Management and Research Institute. Commonly we know it as EMRI. Yeah, floor is yours.
First of all, I would like to share with you why government use PPP, or why should there be a PPP. Apart from all other things, what strikes me is the 7th point, which says acting together what we can achieve, what each of us acting alone cannot. That means there is a need for partnership which has synergy. There is a need for partnership if I cannot do something and partner brings a value. Now here the task is of achieving Millennium Development Goals. If we have to achieve that, we have to ensure health care for all for this country of our size. For that particular reason, the task is so enormous, perhaps government cannot do it alone. And definitely private sector cannot do it alone either. So there is a strong need for PPP. It brings in a lot of benefits. It brings in cost efficiencies, higher productivity, accelerated delivery, and it brings in a lot of customer focus and enhances the social service. Ultimately, healthcare is about social service. However, we have to take care of certain threats. Although we bring in the strength of both the partners, but for bringing an effective PPP, we have to guard against illegitimate or unethical means to maximize the profits. There should not be a tendency of less concern towards public health goal instead of trying to create or maximizing the profits. There's lack of interest in sharing clinical information This is one of the points perhaps discussed in the previous session also. And lack of regulatory control over some of the practices. So these are any effective PPP model must take care of these points. When EMRI started, we found out through various studies that there's clearly a lack of access and affordability in the country for large number of population, for large population. Almost 80% of the people who got into emergency situations were at the bottom of the pyramid. And almost 80% of the people who died, many of them could have survived, but they could not get proper medical attention in the first hour, what is called the golden hour. So it was identified, perhaps we need a very effective EMS system. To some extent, it will not only take care of the emergencies, but it will also, in some manner, bring the healthcare facilities nearer to our masses. Now, word over, when we saw EMS system run by governments, like in France and UK, these had problems of resources. They lack innovations in technology, lack of transparency, and many times there was lack of expertise also. In India, many NGOs were running, but they were very localized solutions, and there might have been some islands of excellence, but these models were not scalable and replicable, which could have made an impact on a large population. Now, Austria had a private system. Again, it was a limited access to the market. It was constricted by legislation, and it could not have been scaled up quickly. We found that the PPP model would be the most successful model, where the government provides funding, institutional structures, monitoring, and access to the partners. Private sector brings in the professionalism, brings in the professional management, best-in-class technology, time-bound delivery, accountability, and above all, inspirational leadership. The people provide the demand for the service, and they also must provide feedback on the service, and also fund indirectly by paying taxes in various means. When the draft report of NRHM on public-private partnership was made, this project was also extensively studied, and it was found to be replicable throughout the country. And not throughout the country. When I was invited to United Nations and in Washington, D.C., when I shared this experiment, everybody agreed that this model is very suitable not only in the developing country, but developed countries have also a lot to learn from this model. What is unique? It is very different than any other public-private model in its conceptual design itself. That is why we say it is an innovative, pro-poor PPP model, and it is a not-for-profit PPP model. This model ensures service delivery which is free to the beneficiaries, which costs only 1 rupee per citizen per month. In relation to benefits it brings in directly to the people, this is just peanuts of amount. At this point of time when I speak, we serve one emergency every 4 seconds and save one life every 5 minutes. And all these lives, 80% of these lives are in their productive age groups, because 70 to 75% emergencies we attend are either accident-related emergencies or young women in pregnancies. So it is the productive life which are being saved, which directly also contribute towards the GDP of the country. The model starts with sensing the emergency through 108 number, reaching at the earliest possible, providing pre-hospital care, as soon as the emergency ambulance reaches. But before that also there is a pre-arrival instruction, and to get the feedback from the people, we do 48-hour follow-up. We have complete record in electronic system of all the emergencies we have attended, and till now we have attended 2 crore 10 lakh emergencies. Mahindra Satyam is our technology partner, and the system has complete redundancy, and in last 7 years where we are working, there was a zero downtime of the system. At no point of time the call taking has not stopped. The building blocks are from 108 number, which is toll free, can be dialed through any mobile system or landline system. ERCs, one ERC for each of the state, health being a state subject in our country. So any call landing in Hyderabad will land in the, any call landing from Andhra Pradesh will land in the center in Hyderabad. We have capability of handling any size of population through one center itself. And presently, our largest center in Uttar Pradesh handles a population of 20 crore from one center itself. We have vision of providing this service to whole of the country through only 28 centers. If you compare with 911 of US, in US they have more than 5,000 centers to cater to a population which is only 1/3 of our country. Another thing which is very important is we extensively train our people to provide pre-hospital care, be empathetic, and be sincere. I am happy to note here the birthplace of this service is Hyderabad. We started in Hyderabad on 15th August 2005, and now you can see the map where we stand. At this point of time, we cater to 70 crore population of the country. Not only in urban areas, you can see the terrains we operate in. From Himalayan region to Kanyakumari, from Meghalaya to deserts of Kutch, all across the country, whether it is extremist infected areas or coastal areas or hills or deserts, we operate everywhere. We operate in different situations also. We operate in the world's highest village, which is the Kibber village, and we are able to reach there in 30 minutes. Covering 70 million population, we have 25,000 people. Every day we attend to 20,000 emergencies. I talked about time-bound service delivery. We ensure that by implementing, starting the project in less than 4 months, we have set a target of 108 days for us. So wherever we take up the project, we can implement that in 108 days. In Uttar Pradesh, we were able to not only commission the project, but cover whole state of 20 crore, which is, if it were a country, it will be the 5th largest country in the world. In 4.5 months, we were able to deliver service to everybody. More than 96% calls are taken in less than 2 rings. When I was there in 911 center of Washington, D.C., they were taking 94 calls in 7 seconds. And we take nationally 96% calls, 2 rings means around 4 seconds. In some of the centers, we take 99% calls in less than a ring. So as soon as you end up dialing, the call will be picked up. This is because of the technology. We learnt a lot from US and other countries also, but they are working on a dated legacy technology which they started in 30 years back. They have also started upgrading the technology. Out of their 50 counties, they have been able to do in last 7 years only in 6 counties. Whereas all 15 states we operate is higher end technology. this is a very cost effective, as I told you, it costs only 1 rupee per citizen per month. It has been documented by various government agencies as one of the most successful PPP. It has been mentioned as a historical landmark in the healthcare delivery system. And one more thing which is very important, it has built more trust in healthcare system as a whole. Because not only healthcare system tries to match this efficiency, other systems, police system, veterinary system, they also try to match this thing. Another very important thing is when we did a specific study in Andhra Pradesh in 3 years' time, there was reduction of 18% in maternal mortality rate attributed to 108 service itself. This framework is thriving because of the political will, public servants' commitment, and public support. There is a trust element not only among the PPP partner, but we consider as a partnership with all stakeholders, including media, including society at large, and including villages and masses. Here, the expenditure is borne by the respective state governments, and GVK funds leadership, innovation, collaborations, research, technology, and bring in knowledge and expertise to run this complex program, which synthesizes many technologies, and we do it to bring better outcomes with the same resources to serve the poor people. We try to do it through people, process orientation, and performance-driven approach. Apart from EMT in the ambulances, we have doctors in the center 24/7, so EMTs can take advice from the doctors.
Mr. Subodh, you need to wind up now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So instead of reinventing, we collaborated and learned the best practices to implement this. And what we try to do is more and more with less and less for more and more people. Various cases, bomb blast cases. This is a girl on the left side bottom. She was declared dead. And our people who are highly skilled on doing various skill-based things like CPR and other things, they could revive this lady. Triplets, multiple triplets are born. Professor C.K. Prahlad, it is his last article before his sad demise. He called this service as Gandhian innovation that synthesizes many technologies. EMRI has seen this program as synthesis of many technologies rather than only a medical-related problem. Now, PPP can be used for many healthcare services. Looking at that, we have also beyond 108 dropback service, neonat, or recently we have also started partnership with police department in AP, and we also take all 100 center is managed by us, medical health helpline also we operate. And in the end, ultimately it is for us, this service is about reduction in poverty and increase in quality of life. And this can be achieved by caring, valuing, respecting life, and by being humane with humility and commitment to serve the people. It gives us a joy, a lot of joy of giving back to society. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Satyawadi. It's appropriate to say that good things have to be held back till the end. Emery underscores the point which I made earlier, that you need to know the need first before you design or think about having a BBB model which is sustainable, successful, and efficient. Emery is one of the models where the need of the people on the road, in the hilly terrain, in the remotest locations, is addressed through a cost-efficient model and delivered in an atmosphere where public resources are driving the whole change process and ultimately meeting the need of the people. The core is the need had to be addressed, whatever be the channel or approach to deliver health care. Now, you had diverse speakers driving through the whole process of how to build models of in the triple P landscape. Before we go further, I would like you to ask certain questions which must be important from your perspective, and we would see to it that who can address those questions best. Any questions from the audience? Yes, please. Kindly identify yourself.
National Institute of Smart Government, earlier with CDAC. I saw the very impressive presentation. To your right. To the left side, equally impressive presentation, but not necessarily so much to do the PPP per se. Therefore, I want them to stretch it also into this session of PPP. But before that, I saw the Bihar case of primary health care. I didn't see it here, but everybody recalls the Arogyasri health insurance is a great PPP case. And then EMRI fortunately is here. And so basically, I'm with a huge amount of interest, I'm looking at the PPP session, partly because we had other sessions earlier also, many of us discussing about e-health. Why is it the e-health? India, we had to do scale. So like many other fields, PPP is the one great opportunity, a level playing field for this to move forward. So, if I were to look at that, for instance, I would like to listen to the colleague from NIC. When they did it with CGHS, see, like in the case of insurance, they also got CGHS approved. So many hospitals, so many facilities.
I request you to shoot the question, please.
Question is,
there may be others who would like to.
For instance, the NIC thing, would they be interested in extending their solution to cover all the CGHS approved hospitals, clinics and things?
Thank you. Yes.
Whatever has shown the projects, for example, MCTS, 60 to 80% of the records, whatever we are getting is from the private sector. Even MCTS, we have 60 lakh population, 60 lakh records, out of which around 8 lakhs only are from the government hospitals. Rest all we are getting. See, PPP, what I mean is information flow also. See, we should have collaboration. So what I have shown is, it is not that I have taken some money and taken a contract, built it, operate, that is okay. But I am just giving a different paradigm where we share also. So whatever we have built, one application where we have built, 60 to 80% of the information is flowing from the private sector. So that is another model of PPP, I say.
Yes. In fact, if you see the build-up of the panel, public, private, and here I am knitting them together. In fact, this is exactly the query which came to mind, how much it is accessible to the private players in the country. Unless a public platform built up with public resources is available to the private people to use, innovation will never happen. Any question? Yes, Dr. Sood. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I am Dr. Sood, and though the model has been doing extremely well and innovative one, and it's a way forward for the healthcare sector as well. Say, God forbid, if things go wrong, and is there an exit route option, or there is any case which you have come across where the things didn't go the way between as per plan between both the partners? Then what are the exit route options in a PPP model?
Difficult question, no doubt. Who would like to address this difficult? Emery, oh, yes. Go ahead.
I think...
Let me simplify it with any of the state governments.
I understand, let him try.
In any of the state
governments. to him to answer, you know. There is a possibility that he can answer something you would not have visualized. Yeah.
I think it's very important to have a exit route whenever a partnership is developed. But at the same time, if you see how EMRI has developed over a period of time, when EMRI started, we were very sure at that point of time, making governments agree may not be an easy job. That is how initially EMRI started totally as a private enterprise. It demonstrated 1 year in a few cities of AP what benefits it could bring in. We also tested our model. And the partnership started after 1 year with government of AP. The model was fine-tuned and partnership kept on evolving. And after that, getting a lot of learnings, fine-tuning, evolving the partnership, 2007 only, we stepped out and second state came in. So it is very important to talk about exit route, but also it is very important that we define the parameters of partnership properly. Now coming to exit, we have example within EMRI also. Things did not go right, so to say, or there was not to expectation of both the partners, and at one point of time we agreed to exit from the state of Rajasthan after operating for 1 or 2 years. They tried a few other things, but I may also tell you that we have again entered into partnership with Rajasthan, and from the month of May this year, we are again operating in the state of Rajasthan. Yeah. So exit route can be there, but ultimately it is about the right program, right definition, right understanding of what both sides need to deliver, and developing relationship and trust.
I always thought that you were going to say you don't need an exit route actually, because you're so strong that the other partner, the so-called strong partner, so-called government, is always thinking, why not establish more partnership? That has been the history of EMRI in the country, where each state is wishing to bring them in. That is the real strength of a partnership, that others should get inducement to enter into a partnership in the public landscape, especially so in the health sector, because health sector is a state subject in India. Any innovation in any state in the country will lead to huge upsurge in demand and partnership in other states in our country. It's a huge continent, if we see. Any other question? Any question from anybody in the audience?
Skills. So I would like to know what is the efforts that are going on, particularly at the lower segment where startup jobs, there are not much of kind of training that is coming up, even though there are a lot of government initiative PPP models available, particularly in the paramedico segment. Is there any indication or companies working towards developing this kind of vocational skills, which is the need of the hour, whereas other sectors like retail and hospitality have contributed a lot towards skilling area?
I would answer that. National skills in the paramedical landscape. And of course it's partnering with CII, FICCI. In fact, one of the centers has been set up within FICCI to drive this whole process. Because if it is placed entirely in the public landscape, it won't last for long. So Indian healthcare sector through the FICCI and with collaboration with the National Skills Development Council is now rolling out the whole plan. Because I mentioned in the beginning about doctors and nurses, I didn't deliberately bring the factor of other paramedical professionals, which is very, very important. If really we have to scale up the whole process, it will take time, but it will deliver results. Can you believe the compounded annual growth rate of the health sector in India? What is your guess today? What is the annual growth rate of health sector? Any guesses from the audience? 21%. 21%. If you want to run a business in any sector, enter health in India. That's the message global businesses are looking at. And can you believe what is the total worth of the health sector today in India? And what is going to be the worth of health sector in 2020? Any guesses? in terms of billion of US dollars. You get a shock. Any guesses from the audience? Any number that you can throw? What is the worth of Indian health sector today? Anybody? Today, what is the worth of Indian healthcare sector?
10 and 15 billion
Huh? Come again?
Between 10 and 15 billion dollars.
See, a veteran like him underestimating by a huge margin of 100%. The Indian healthcare sector is worth 40 billion US dollars today. And what is going to be? 80 billion US dollars by 2020. 21% CAGR. It's so mind-boggling that you cannot imagine the need for partnerships. There's no way you can drive this money to more productive channels. Huge, if you see Mahindra Satyam Emery didn't have a single pie. The entire money has been invested from public resources. But the need was there. Public was compelled to invest its money for public need through the private channel. That's what Triple P is all about. NIC, CDAC, K2, all drive the process through defining needs of individuals and channelizing the public resources for public good through the private channel. That's the only way it will scale up, and it's the only way in which the whole sustainability shall be achieved. At this juncture, I would like to thank all my panelists who have thrown important parameters, important dimensions, and important drivers of building a sustainable Triple P models in Indian healthcare sector. Thank all. Thank you. And last but not the least, the ELETs who have given a platform where you could deliberate on these issues and also elaborate on these issues. Thank you.
For making this session one of the most interesting sessions, and especially to Dr. Jain for the marvelous chairing of the session. With this, I would like to request Dr. Anant R. Koper to present memento to Dr. Rajiv Kumar Jain. A big hand, please. And then I request Dr. Jain to present mementos to other speakers. We start with Dr. Anant R. Koper, Dr. K. Rajasekhar, Mr. P.J. Binu, Mr. Subodh Satyawadi, I would request all the speakers for a group photo if you, on the stage.